Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today we're going to continue talking about passive-aggressive behavior. And we began talking about this in our program last time. It's when you're not direct, when you want to communicate something, but you don't come out and say it, and you use other tactics or other ways to do that, like slamming the door or using sarcasm and being ironic or whatever, various things like that.
Yeah, anything but being direct with how you feel. So you're trying to let them know you're not happy, but you're not letting them know why. Maybe you think it's pretty clear. They should know why. They should know I'm angry. I shouldn't have to explain this. But sometimes it just makes it worse if you don't sit down and talk things out. Sign. That's a big one where people just, make the big sigh. Especially if you ask someone to do something or have you finished this? Well, you know how they feel then. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and read through day 2. Hopefully we have some suggestions on how to fix this passive-aggressive behavior. All of us do it. Some of us do it more than others. But ultimately, it's not the healthiest type of behavior. So let's learn some ways to kind of fix this if we can.
Because of the destructive nature of passive-aggressive behavior, it's important to learn how to deal with it. To do that, we must first understand what causes it. Sometimes passive aggressiveness stems from a person's upbringing, where their environment discouraged expressing emotions directly. Because of this, they may not know how to clearly communicate feelings, so they find a way to do so subtly. In other cases, people know that being aggressive is not socially acceptable. So in situations like these, such as family or business events, they may be subtle with their aggressive behavior. There are also times when people just don't have the confidence to be assertive and justify being passive-aggressive as an easier way to deal with emotions. When someone is demonstrating passive aggressiveness toward you, it's crucial to not get angry or frustrated in response. Instead, encourage the other person to talk about their feelings by pointing them out in a non-judgmental way. Once this is done, you can let them specify or elaborate on their feelings, which will give you both ample opportunity to correct any issues. It can often be easier to recognize other people's problems than our own, but it's also essential to evaluate when we're being passive-aggressive. If you've acknowledged that you're being passive-aggressive, try to work out what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. You can then begin to concentrate on making changes, such as learning to express your feelings clearly and in an appropriate manner. This can take time, though, so you must be patient with yourself. While conflict is an unavoidable part of life, recognizing when passive aggressiveness occurs and how to fix it is an important tool for forming deep, lasting relationships.
Let's dive in, folks. We're going to be talking again about passive-aggressive behavior and some ways to counter that or fix that. Hopefully, we can all learn a little bit from today's lesson. So let's look at the first sentence. Because of the destructive nature of passive-aggressive behavior, it's important to learn how to deal with it. That's very important. That's a good sentence. How to handle it, how to deal with it, how to confront it, although confront is a little aggressive as well. But how do you deal with it? If something's destructive, it causes damage, it causes harm. One example I could give you is criticism. It can either be destructive or constructive. Destructive means you're telling somebody all of the things they're doing wrong, but you're not doing it in a way that they can improve or they can change. You just want to criticize them. Then there's constructive criticism, where someone looks at what you do and they say, well, you can improve if you just change this a little or change this a little. But you're doing it because you care about them, you love them, or you just want to see them get better. So there's a very big difference between being destructive and constructive. So we would also use destructive to talk about the strength of things like earthquakes and typhoons. They can be extremely destructive and damage things to the point where they've been destroyed.
Exactly. I once saw a destructive tornado many years ago. It blew down many houses and things like that. So here we've got the destructive nature of passive-aggressive behavior. And because we have this, it's important to learn how to deal with it. So we all agree that being passive-aggressive is probably not too good for our relationships. It just makes them worse. It does not address the problems directly. So we need to learn how to deal with this situation. And to do that, we must first understand what causes it. Indeed, in order to fix a problem, we need to understand the cause. Sometimes passive aggressiveness stems from a person's upbringing, where their environment discouraged expressing emotions directly. So that may be part of a person's background. When they grew up, they were not encouraged to express themselves. Every time they tried to give an opinion or something, they were just told to shut up, or that's not a problem. Why are you making a mountain out of a molehill? So that person probably understood that, if I want my problems to be understood, then I have to use this passive-aggressive behavior.
Well, maybe some of these folks growing up had parents who perhaps spanked them or hit them or did something to them that way if they expressed some negative opinion. So you learn to keep your mouth shut so you don't get hurt. So that can be hard too. We use stem from quite a bit, don't you? Or don't we? To stem from something, where does it come from? It stems from or it comes from. We get tired of using the same phrases again and again. So learn this, stems from, and you can use it instead of comes from. So stems from. A person's upbringing, how you were brought up, how you were raised. And sometimes those environments are very different for people. And that can have a huge impact on a relationship. So get to know what your partner or your friend is used to, and then try to come up with a way to communicate more openly after you figure out what everyone's good at or bad at. Because of this, they may not know how to clearly communicate feelings. So they find a way to do so subtly. Kids that have been taken from their parents, maybe their parents are in prison or have been arrested for something, those kids sometimes have a very hard time in foster homes or when they're adopted. They haven't been taught how to express themselves. So they will probably be more passive-aggressive or maybe just aggressive. And you need to find a way to learn how to communicate with them, especially because it will be invaluable for them to learn as they grow into adulthood. So it says in situations like these, such as a family or a business event, we have a lot of those, they may be subtle with their aggressive behavior. Yeah, I mean, my family is pretty open in saying what we don't like. I have a loud family, and we pretty much tell each other how we feel or if we disagree. But we've had people marry into our family, in-laws, of course, brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws. They're not used to that, and so it can be difficult for them. So it's good to sit down and talk about how you communicate.
I'm also thinking of situations where people are they kind of all agree that we're supposed to get along and there aren't supposed to be problems.
Oh, yeah.
So you might be thinking, well, why are you saying something about that? That's not a problem. Be cool, man. We're all cool here. We're all friends here. There shouldn't be any problems here. Why are you mentioning this? So indeed, some people may be afraid to mention something that bothers them because it will kind of upset the unity of a particular group with your coworkers and your family members and stuff like that. Now, we went on to say, in other cases, people know that being aggressive is not socially acceptable. So in situations like these, such as family or business events, they may be subtle with their aggressive behavior. So indeed, if you are aggressive, some people won't accept that. So you think, then I guess I better be more passive here to let people know what I want. And there are also times when people just don't have the confidence to be assertive and justify being passive-aggressive as an easier way to deal with emotions. So indeed, a lot of us aren't really trained to be assertive. That's why we have this thing called assertiveness training. Like a lot of women in the business field, for example, they don't really ask for raises from their bosses because they lack that assertiveness. They're just really afraid of hurting people's feelings or upsetting the boss or something like that. So they try to figure out another way to ask for a raise or something. They be passive-aggressive instead of being assertive or direct.
Yeah, let me for a minute talk about the difference between these two, assertive and aggressive. I have seen job offers on the internet written here in Taiwan where they say they want an aggressive salesperson. Please know that that's not the term you want to use. You want to have an assertive salesperson, not an aggressive salesperson. Aggressive sometimes connotes or gives that negative attitude or that negative feeling that you don't want to have in employees. So if you're assertive, you're confident. And you're sure of what you need and want, and you just say it. You just go forward, but it doesn't have to be hurtful to anyone else. Aggressive, sometimes it sounds a little bit violent. Sometimes that person is very selfish and isn't thinking of anyone else but themselves. So be careful when you write job ads that you say you want assertiveness and not aggressiveness. That's not good. There's a big difference between those two. There are times when people, as Tom said, people, especially women in the workforce, they don't have that confidence to be as assertive as they need to be. And then they justify being passive-aggressive as an easier way to deal with emotions. If you justify something, you give a reason why you're doing something. Sometimes when we justify our actions, it's kind of an excuse. It's not the truth. It's kind of an excuse. And it's not the way that you really want to resolve issues.
Right. So, for example, if you're a member of a minority group and you're being oppressed by the majority, then you are justified to seek some kind of solution to that problem, to protest, to write letters to congressmen and things like that. So, yes, indeed, if you're not assertive or if you're not aggressive, then you can justify being passive-aggressive as an easier way to deal with your emotions. But as we've been talking about, that can cause more problems than they can solve. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in our lesson for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是6月22号 Unit 12 Recognizing, Understanding and Fixing Passive-Aggressive Behavior 第2天的课程。透过第1天课程，我们知道有些人不高兴的时候不会直接说出来，他们会表现得比较像在生闷气，或者在一些不相关的话题上面咄咄逼人。这就是 passive-aggressive。当我们自己和身边的人出现这种行为模式的时候，其实相处的气氛会变得非常紧张，室内的空气会像都凝结了一样。因此，为了让人际关系更加和谐，相处更愉快，我们有必要知道如何化解这种行为模式。好，我们现在一起来看看学习重点。第一段其实是在解释 passive-aggressive 的行为出现的时候应该要怎么应对。作者认为要先找出引发 passive-aggressive 的原因，原因分别是第3句 Sometimes passive-aggressiveness stems from 这个句子，以及第5句 In other cases, people know 这第5个句子。好，第3句这个原因说它是 aggressive， 和这边讲到的第3句这个原因是说 passive-aggressive 呢，其实和个人所受到的教养方式有关。成长的环境不允许他们直接表达情绪，而第5句这个原因则说，他们知道在社会上和别人相处应该以和为贵，要有礼貌，不可以让别人觉得你盛气凌人。可是通常 passive-aggressive 的人自信心不够，所以和其他人相处，情绪出现问题的时候，他们不知道如何表达，自然而然就转变成 passive-aggressive。 好，那我们现在呢，了解课文内容以后，看一下这些句子有哪些文法重点。首先，先请同学看到第一个句子里面 destructive 这个形容词，其实它跟 destroy 这个动词 destroy 是相关的，就是破坏。那 destructive 就是有破坏性的。再来呢，它跟名词 destruction 其实也是相关的 destruction，请同学特别注意。再来，请同学看到第三个句子。第三个句子动词的部分 ，passive aggressiveness 到底怎么来的？有什么原因 ？stems from 其实就是源自于什么？就像 results from， 最主要呢是跟一个人所受到的教养方式有关。不过，请同学特别注意到逗点后面的这个关系副词 where， 就在这种教养方式当中，到底他所受到的是什么样子的教养概念？再来，请同学看到第五个句子，也就是第二个原因，到底为什么会出现 passive aggressiveness in other cases， 还有另外一些状况，就这些人他们知道，其实和人待人接物的时候是不能这么做的 ，it's not socially acceptable。就是对人 aggressive， 就对人有攻击性是不可以的。那他们知道不可以主动攻击人，所以他们就变成呢，说话的时候呢是咄咄逼人，可能他们自己也不自觉。再来呢，第七个句子 ，There are also times when people just don't have the confidence to be assertive 这个地方，请同学特别注意到 when 这里，紧接着 times 之后。所以我们现在这里是要讲说，有些时候是会怎么样的情况，我们运用的关系副词是 when， 在有些时候，有些人会怎么做，因为他们没有信心，自信心不够，所以讲话呢就不够坚定有自信。Assertive 是形容词，非常重要，就是讲话坚定有自信的。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, it's time for us to continue with our lesson for today. Again, we're trying to recognize, understand, and fix passive-aggressive behavior. The main point of today's lesson is that you need to learn how to deal with it, and you need to understand its source, where it's coming from, and why people do it. Now, here in the second paragraph, it says, when someone is demonstrating passive aggressiveness toward you, it's crucial to not get angry or frustrated in response. So, indeed, you can recognize this if somebody's being subtle with you or not being direct, or they slam the door, or they use sarcasm or something like that. Don't get upset about that because they're probably using that approach for a reason. And if you get frustrated and if you get angry, then you've got an argument on your hands and the problems won't be solved at all.
I worked with somebody who was very passive-aggressive, and since I was the boss, it was difficult. If she didn't want to do something, she just, would delay, or ignore, so I had to end up doing it. And every day I had this little slogan on my wall to remember that we all have weaknesses, we all have problems, and we just need to be more forgiving, understanding, and eventually, because I didn't get angry, things changed. Things got better, but it was difficult for a long time. So try not to get angry or frustrated in response to what seems to be passive-aggressive behavior towards you. Here's a really good idea. Encourage the other person to talk about their feelings by pointing them out in a non-judgmental way. Wait until you are not frustrated or angry at that person. You're at a point where you're very calm and you truly want to know what's bothering them. What is it that I'm doing that I could change to make life better for you? I mean, that's really what I wanted to know. What am I doing that's just bugging you? How can I fix this? And it turned out it wasn't really me. It was something else. But, sometimes we jump to conclusions because we don't know. We see this passive-aggressive behavior and we kind of have to guess at the reason why this person is treating us this way. So what you should do is calm yourself down and find a time to really discuss things at length where you both can, get things off your chest, which just means you can have a really open dialogue about what's going on.
Right, so if someone slams the door, you probably shouldn't say, hey, don't slam that door. Who do you think you are? Try to respond to, hey, you slammed the door there. Is something wrong?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it? And that's a non-judgmental way of approaching a problem. And once this is done, or as soon as this is done, you can let them specify or elaborate on their feelings, which will give you both ample opportunity to correct any issues. Now, here we've got the word specify, which means to point out exactly what you're trying to say. Give the details, okay? So yes, specify on your feelings exactly how you're feeling. Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling disappointed? Are you depressed or something like that? And then let them elaborate on those feelings. To elaborate, again, means to just expand on those things, talk more about them. So specify and elaborate what you're feeling, and then both of you will have plenty of opportunity. You'll have ample opportunity to correct any issues or any problems. Ample here just means sufficient. You have a large amount of something.
I want to go back to elaborate. Notice this is the verb form of this word. There's another form of the word that's spelled exactly the same, but it's pronounced differently. That's the adjective, meaning there are a lot of little details or complex details to something. Oh, the design of that shirt is very elaborate. It's that short I sound, it, not eight, which is what this is, elaborate. If someone's talking about something and you're not quite getting the whole picture, you could say, hey, can you elaborate on this particular part? Or can you elaborate a bit? And then they could give you more details and break things down for you. We hear this a lot in business. So yeah, they'll give you both. If you talk to each other, it will give you plenty of opportunity to correct any problems. Ample, again, just means plenty of something. I have ample food for a picnic this weekend. Don't worry about it. We have plenty. Moving on to the next paragraph, it can often be easier to recognize other people's problems than our own. That's called being not being self-aware. And a lot of people aren't very self-aware. Sometimes we like to think that we're doing things great. It's the other people that are messing things up. It's good to examine your own actions and how people are reacting to you. It says here it's also essential to evaluate when we're being passive-aggressive. So if you evaluate something, you kind of judge it, right? You form an idea, you value something, you form an idea of what's going on, or you assess it. You can evaluate a lot of things. A doctor will evaluate your tests to see if he can figure out how to diagnose what's wrong with you.
Right, or your boss may evaluate your work performance every 3 months or so to determine whether you can continue working there. So you need to monitor yourself, you need to evaluate yourself, and actually try to observe when you yourself are being passive-aggressive. Of course, a lot of us think that, hey, it's always his or her problem. It's not my problem. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. It's you who are the problem. But we need to realize that, 50% of the time, it's probably our fault. Now, if you've acknowledged that you're being passive-aggressive, try to work out what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. So yes, indeed, if you acknowledge this, if you admit that you are being passive-aggressive, yes, I used sarcasm. Yes, I said that thing about the vacuum cleaner. Yes, I slammed the door. I did that. So I guess I better deal with my feelings. I should be brave and not be such a coward and face my problems and determine why I'm feeling that way and communicate that with the person who is puzzled as to why I'm behaving this way.
If you do that, you can then begin to concentrate on making changes. To concentrate means you focus on something, especially if you have a test or you have a project that's coming up that you need to finish. You need to concentrate. If you don't concentrate, other things get your attention and you don't get as much accomplished. So it is good to concentrate on making changes. And here's one example or one suggestion. Learn to express your feelings clearly and in an appropriate manner. Appropriate just means suitable for that situation. I think yelling at someone probably is not appropriate. So sitting down in a calm way, or maybe you invite a coworker out for lunch, or maybe a coffee, a tea, a drink, and, in a nicer environment where there's not so much stress, talk about what's been going on and see if you can open up a dialogue that way.
Yep, and it can take time, so you must be patient with yourself and be patient with others as well.
True.
And here in the final paragraph, we wrap things up. It says, while conflict is an unavoidable part of life, recognizing when passive aggressiveness occurs and how to fix it is an important tool for forming deep, lasting relationships. So yes, indeed, we must admit that we're going to have conflicts with people. There's no reason to feel bad about that. We're not all going to agree 100% on how to do things or how to talk to each other and things like that. So yes, indeed, you need to recognize when you're being passive-aggressive or when someone else is being passive-aggressive, and then you learn how to deal with it and how to fix it. And if you can do that, then you can form deep and lasting relationships. You'll be best friends forever, BFF.
Yeah, this is a great unit. I think a lot of people could improve in this area, including me. Right now, though, we're going to listen one more time to our Chinese teacher.
好，接着我们看到第二段。第二段的第一个句子，我们知道说 passive aggressiveness 这是一个行为模式。那它到底要跟什么样的动词搭配呢？我们可以用 demonstrate 加上 passive aggressiveness， 就是你出现了这样的行为模式。所以 when someone is demonstrating passive aggressiveness toward you， 对谁做这件事情？好，那接下来作者就提供了我们一些方法。如果别人这样做的时候，我们可以怎么样？就是不要真的对他们生气。那我们应该要怎么样呢？对他们循循善诱，引导他们。Instead， 请同学特别这样注意，像 instead 这一种转折词，通常呢这一种等于文意有所转变。那在阅读测验的时候，常常都是重要的考点。好，所以阅读的时候，请多注意 instead 这种转折词。这里提到的就是面对别人有 passive aggressiveness 的时候，我们解决的方法是不要苛责他们，鼓励他们说出真实的感受。再来，请看到第三个句子，那要请他们说感受要怎么说呢？请他们 elaborate on， 就是对自己的情绪多说明。要请同学注意的是 elaborate， 它是不及物动词，所以针对什么事情多做说明，要加上介系词 on。好了，再来我们看到第三段。前一段教我们处理 passive aggressive 的方法，面对别人不开心不直说的时候，我们要循循善诱，鼓励他们和我们沟通。那接下来，如果我们自己有这样的行为的时候，又该怎么做呢？首先要先清楚的认识到，原来我现在这样子就是 passive aggressive。那看到第三句，如果意识到这样子的情况了 ，if you have acknowledged that。If you have acknowledged that， 如果你已经察觉到了你有这样子的情况了，就该怎么做 ？Work out what you are feeling， 去解决你自己，就是想看你到底为什么有这样子的感觉。Work out what you are feeling。好，再来最后面呢，我们看到最后这一段 ，While conflict is unavoidable， 整篇文章的结论，生活中冲突难免。Passive aggressiveness 出现的时候，要有办法辨识出来，还要知道怎么应对解决。做得到这件事情，就可以化危机为转机，和别人建立深化长久的关系。那请同学特别注意这里的 lasting 指的就是长久的。好，以上就是我们针对 passive aggressiveness 这篇课文第二天所做的中文讲解。谢谢大家。
That is it for today's lesson. Thanks for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck in sorting out any kind of conflicts you have and whether or not you can recognize when you or someone else is being passive-aggressive. And hopefully you'll know how to deal with it. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.